Welcome, Hornets. In this video, we're continuing with curve sketching, but we're now looking at curve sketching of a cubic. Now, we're going to start in the same place that we did in our quadratic with what we know from our pre-calculus, our Algebra 2, and our Algebra 1. This is one of the reasons why you have to know your basic skills. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to factor this, and I recognize that there's a 1/6 x squared in common, and I'm left with a 1/2 x plus 1. This tells me that my two x-intercepts are going to be 0 and -2. We can see our y-intercept is 0, and the orientation falling to the left and rising to right. Now, this is my left and right hand rule. Once again, nothing outrageous is happening here. We just have to kind of keep everything straight. And this is our first bit of information. We're now going to go to our first derivative. Now, the first derivative is going to give us the intervals of increasing, and it's going to give us whether we have a relative maximum, relative minimum, or neither. So you notice I bring down the 3 and I have 1/4 x squared, bring down the 2 and I have 1/3 x. I'm then going to factor this, taking out the 1/4 x, leaving me with an x plus 4/3. Now, the better you are at factoring, the easier this is going to be because I can now see my critical values. The critical values have to be at 0 and -4/3. I'm now going to take my second derivative, and you'll notice when we take our second derivative, we're going to have 1/2 x, and we have plus 1/3. Now, as I did before, I'm going to factor out my 1/2, and it's going to leave me with x plus 2/3. I can now see that I have a point of inflection, and that point of inflection is at -2/3. And I'm going to have to find what that value is shortly. We're now going to go ahead and we're going to make our two sign charts. The first sign chart is using the 1/4, the x, and the x plus 4/3. And I'm going to put in my critical value of 0 and -4/3. 1/4 is always positive as we go along. Positive and negative. Positive, positive, negative. And I can clearly see I have a relative maximum and a relative minimum. Not only that, but I can clearly see that f of x is increasing on two intervals, -∞ to -4/3, and from 0 to +∞. F of x is decreasing on the interval in between, -4/3 to 0. Doing the second sign chart, -2/3 here. We have two factors, 1/2 and x plus 2/3. We're going to have, let's choose a value in positive, positive, and a negative. And we can clearly now see that f of x is concave down on the open interval negative infinity to negative 2/3, and f of x is concave up on 2/3 to positive infinity. Now, all of this allows me to start graphing things. Now, I did make a quick table of values. The table of values has the two critical values on it. So I found negative 4/3. I found my point of inflection, negative 2/3, and then my relative minimum. So we have our relative maximum. This turns out to be 8/81 written as a fraction, then 4/81, and then 0. All right, we're now ready to go ahead and graph. I'm going to start putting everything on that I know. For example, we have our x-intercept, -2, 0. This is also our y-intercept. We have our critical values. Let's just go ahead and put our relative maximum in. That's at negative 4/3. It's about right here. And we're going to put that point right above. At 2/3 is our point of inflection. Now we begin. Concave down to the point of inflection, and then concave up thereafter. And I'm going to plot all of my points. This is the tedium, I know. Negative 4/3, 8/81. This is negative 2/3, 4/81, 0, 0. And there is our graph. Notice we have everything that we need. We have our concavity. We have our increasing and decreasing intervals. We have our relative maximums, relative minimums, and we can see what they are on the chart. We have all of our basic information, including orientation, x and y intercepts, and we've used our first and second derivatives in order to find all of this information. This is curve sketching. It's also graphic analysis, so just be aware that they go hand in hand, being able to analyze a graph and being able to sketch a graph based upon the first and second derivative. Alrighty, thank you very much, Hornets. I hope this helped you. Please be well and be safe, and feel free to look at this video multiple times until you understand what's happening. Thank you very much. Have a good night.